4744 East Oak Knoll Road in Rolling Prairie is growing, and they're looking to fill production, maintenance, and quality control positions. Employees will be eligible for benefits following 30 days of employment and bringing home over $1,000 a week. Stop by the front desk for an application today. Come be a part of a growing family. OTEC Corporation, 4744 East Oak Knoll Road in Rolling Prairie.
Alexandria Molding, 4747 West State Road 2 in LaPorte, is hiring for manufacturing and warehouse distribution. They're looking for motivated individuals for all 4 shifts. Base wage starts at $15 an hour and goes
now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. My name's Nate Laux, and you are listening to Sound Off only on 96.7 The Eagle. It's good to have you with us today. As I said last Monday when we had Al Ott on the show, we're going through all the sheriff candidates. I hope you're getting out to, listen and talk to different candidates as the primary comes up. And here's the thing. You might not know this. You might not be partisan. When it comes to a primary, you get to vote in one of the Republican or Democratic primaries. It doesn't. You don't have to have a card. You don't have to have anything there other than when you go to the polls on that day, they're going to say, which one would you want, Republican or Democrat? Now, once you get that, you can only vote for a Republican or Democrat in the primary. When it comes to the general election, you can vote for whoever you want. But in the primary, you only get to vote for those sets of candidates. But it's your responsibility to learn about them and to ask them questions, these kind of things. And we've got some great sheriff candidates running. They did a League of Women Voters event. They were down in, I think, La Crosse yesterday talking. I did an event down in Hanna, Indiana, talking to the trustee candidates, all these kind of things. And I love it. I love all of this. It's so much fun to listen to candidates talk about their ideas, and honestly, it's kind of hopeful to talk about ways that people can hopefully make your life, my life better, and improve systems and these kind of things. So today on the show we've got Andy Hynek, and we're glad to have him. Andy, how are you?
Great, thanks for having me, guys.
Good to have you. So Andy, I'm going to ask you one basic question that I think every candidate should be able to ask. Why are you running for sheriff?
Great question, Nate. So this is a lifelong goal of mine to run the agency. I think I've done a lot within my last 22 years to set myself up as far as leadership roles go to lead the department. And I've got some really good ideas and a vision to take the department forward.
So talk a little bit, for people that don't know you, a little bit about your career. I just saw on Facebook, on the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department Facebook, I think you're celebrating 22 years. Is that right?
22 years. 22 long years on Sunday is actually the anniversary. I started when I was 21 years old, so I've worked over half of my life at the sheriff's office. I started in the jail division. From the jail division, I went to the merit side, where I patrolled for about 10 years, primarily midnight shift. After that, I was fortunate enough under Sheriff Mullenauer, and at the time, what is now Sheriff Boyd, he was the chief of detectives. I was promoted to a detective. I investigated property crimes, burglaries, robberies, stuff like that. And then in 2014, I was fortunate enough to be assigned to a new unit that our department had joined, a partnership with the United States Marshals Service, serving high-risk felony warrants in the greater Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana area. I served in that position until January of 2017, when our agency became a member of HIDA, High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. And I was promoted to the commander of the LaPorte County Drug Task Force. That was the year we started it. It was combined, and it still is a combined initiative of some very highly motivated, high-speed investigators that investigate drug crimes and violent firearms crimes, stuff like that. And so I ran that unit until I was promoted to captain in 2019, actually about 3 years ago this week. and I'm now a commander on the midnight shift. So I oversee the operations from 10 at night until 6 in the morning when most people are sleeping. I get to work with, again, some really highly motivated deputies that ensure everybody is safe all night long.
So I want to talk to you about a question that I think all of our candidates should maybe deal with. So it's such an interesting time to be a law enforcement officer. We've got political turmoil. You got one side who, champion this defund the police kind of thing. You got another side that, as I was watching the insurrection, was, police officers just getting beat, these kind of things. You've got a lot of rhetoric out there, right? But
Absolutely.
I think majority of people do support the police. I genuinely believe that. But I know that the sheriff is also not just the administrative kind of leader. They're also the public person, right? Their job is also to be in the public, to help people trust law enforcement, to help people know law enforcement, these kind of things. What's your thoughts on that?
Great question. So, again, there is a lot of rhetoric, and truthfully, I wish as a sheriff candidate I didn't have to declare a party. I truly believe that all of our law enforcement officers in this county are neutral. Nobody's extreme left or extreme right, but that is one of the requirements. And there is rhetoric on defund the police, and I think that's first off absolutely a horrible message to send. Now more than ever, we need to be putting more money into law enforcement, specifically into stuff like training. Right, there is. Across the country, these issues that have occurred, I think, are largely in part to a lack of training, either whether it's because agencies can't afford it, or simply we have an officer that's got 20 or 25 years on. He went to training at the beginning of his career, and he hasn't had a whole bunch of training since then. So I think we need to allocate more funds for stuff like training and mental health, and again, do a lot more partnerships with some mental health professionals as well, similar to what they've done in Valparaiso.
So we've got Andy Hynek on the show today. Andy is running for sheriff on the Democratic Party. If you have a question, you're welcome to call the Liquor Vault on-air line at 219-362-0522. You're also welcome to email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Or if you'd like, if you're watching through our Facebook live stream or YouTube, just put your comments there in the chat, and we'll get those as well. And I'd be happy to ask him as well. So what makes you uniquely qualified, do you think, to be the sheriff? What we've got some good candidates running. What sets you apart from some of the other candidates?
Yeah, we do. We're fortunate to have some really good candidates running. Kind of a good problem to have for the citizens of the county, right? But I think the difference in my background is that I've been fortunate to work in every single division within the agency. I've had a leadership role in most of those divisions, so I have a really good working understanding of the department. And then some of the relationships that I've been able to make with folks on the community. I'm very active within the community as far as sitting on several boards. I sit on the Boys and Girls Club board of LaPorte County, Community Corrections Board, and the Small Animal Shelter Board, all boards that I've sat on for many, many years, simply because I try to form those relationships, because I think it is very important for our department to have those. We're more than just the police.
So there's a couple things in the last couple months that have gained some, just some attraction here on the show. People have been very interested in these topics. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I asked Al out on Monday, but I also want to talk to you about it as well. First one I want to talk about is the local income tax. So for our listeners that might not know, the local income tax is a proposal really stemming largely from Mayor Tom Dermody, but it's a tax that has to be approved by the county council. And if it's approved, then there's a local income tax, which means it only impacts residents in LaPorte County, and it's only for public safety. Now, that could be, police officers, fire departments, EMT, but all of that money should go towards them. There's some listeners that say, again, that they think, we should all just try to live in our budgets, as everyone is trying to do with inflation, all of these kind of things. And then some say, of all the things they want their tax money to be spent on, it's law enforcement. It's, keeping the public safe, keeping, making sure that ambulances get to where they're going, these kind of things. So as the somebody running to be the sheriff, what is your thoughts on the local income tax for public safety?
I am absolutely in support of the local income tax, and I'll tell you why. So when I call 911 and I need a policeman, or I need a paramedic, or I need a fireman, I want the best of the best to come, right? And so we have to make sure that we are paying our firemen and our policemen and our paramedics and our dispatchers all a competitive wage. None of those people that I just mentioned got into this profession or into their professions to get rich. But in order to keep them here, we have to be competitively priced, right, to our neighbors to the east and the west and the south and the north. And over the last year and a half or so, we have started to lose officers and paramedics and firemen and dispatchers that are simply going and making more money within a short drive from here. And along with those wages, you have to figure in the cost. If we lose a deputy and they go to another agency, we now have to pay to outfit those officers, the new officer, to train them. And so there's a cost associated with that. And again, it's not just the sheriff's department's money or the sheriff's department's budget. This money, that the increased revenue, will also obviously go to fire, EMS, dispatch, the jail, right? At some point, that's going to be a conversation that's going to have to be had in the near future. That jail is aging. They say anywhere from 8 to 9 years for every one real year. The jail ages 8 to 9 years. And
kind of like dog years, huh?
Exactly right. So, we have to have some funding mechanisms. The council has to have some funding mechanisms set up. So Mayor Dermody's done a really good job on promoting this and explaining it in layman's terms to folks. He's passionate about it. He's gone around to every single small municipality and explained and answered questions to them, along with Sheriff Boyd. And hopefully we can get this through.
On this show, I don't give Mayor Dermody any compliments, so I'll say he's adequate. Another topic that's been, in the news and something that law enforcement specifically has been talking about, including the Sheriff John Boyd and the Indiana State Police Chair or Executive Director. All of these people have been talking about, what this new gun law that passed, how it will impact public safety. And many police officers, not all, many, believe that, again, having permits to carry handguns is a good and step, but also not too much to ask for people that want to carry handguns. Now, I do know one of your opponents on the right, Andrew Morse, does support that law, not having it. But I know that, Al Ott, I know John Boyd and some others were in support of it. Where do you stand on some of that?
Good question and hot topic, right? So I am in support of the permits. And the reason I say that, and my ideology is this, what a lot of people don't know is, when somebody applies for a permit, they start at the local level. So if you live in one of the small municipalities, you would apply there for your permit, Westville, Trail Creek, Kingsford Heights, etc., or the Sheriff's Department, Michigan City. And a lot of times we may have encountered somebody that has a mental health episode where they have voluntarily checked themselves into a mental health facility. When they do that, our guys generate a report, and the person is given a ride to the hospital, and they say, I'm here, I need some mental health help. What happens is then, let's say 2 weeks later, they come in and they want a handgun permit. We have that internal knowledge that we can say, wait a minute, let's flag it and at least give it another look, and have the state police down in Indianapolis, who is responsible, they're tasked with actually issuing that permit, to make sure that this person is mentally stable and we don't have somebody that maybe shouldn't have a firearm or have a handgun permit out there. I am a realist, and I understand that a lot of it, when it comes to crime, they're not going to obey the law anyways, right? But a lot of it, again, goes back to mental health. Now, with that being said, when we talk about permitting, I by no means think that we need to be charging people an exorbitant amount to get that permit, right? Most stuff is computerized, so it's not like we have a lot of man hours in that. So I think there needs to be an equal balance between having the permits, but not, again, forcing somebody to pay some exorbitant amount of money to get that permit.
All right, we've got Sheriff Candidate Andy Hynek on the show today. We're going to take our first break, but if you have a question for Mr. Hynek, you're welcome to call the Liquor Vault on-air line at 219-362-0522. We'll be opening the phone lines for you. Also, if you want to email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com, that'd be great as well. And if you're streaming with us online or you're watching on Facebook or the YouTubes, as the kids say, you're welcome to put your comments in there as well. I'm just glad to have you with us on the show today. Thanks for listening and keep going. We're going to be right back here in a couple minutes on 96.7 The Eagle.
Ben Conowitz here, owner of LaPorte Seamless Cutter. My parents started LaPorte Seamless Cutter in 1982 with one goal in mind, really. Our customers' 100% satisfaction. And we are still providing the same customer service that Tim and Seal Conowitz started all those years ago. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 219-362-9972, or you can visit us on the web, www.lpseamless.com. 219-362-9972.
Remember that last power outage here in LaPorte? Yeah, that was my fault. So I was driving down Boyd Boulevard, minding my own business, when I hit the mother of all potholes. It darn near swallowed my GMC when it spit me out. Yeah, snapped that power pole right in half. Ruined my day, but I knew what I had to do. I had Big Red towed straight to the collision center at Sowers Buick GMC. They removed every splinter of that Nipsco pine twig from my truck, and she was good as new. So remember, when it's crunch time, it's time to call the collision center at Sowers Buick GMC in LaPorte.
The pandemic has hit everyone hard, some more than others, and if you find yourself struggling with debt, wage garnishment, foreclosures, or lawsuits, attorney David Ambers and his staff are here to relieve your stress. A fresh start is just a phone call away. Call the office of David Ambers, attorney at law, and schedule a free bankruptcy consultation. The number is 219-325-9917. David Ambers, attorney at law, 601 State Street, Suite B in LaPorte. Call them today, 219-325-9917.
Hey, who's hungry? Because I've got a deal for you. Dennis Siddell here to introduce you something new to the Morning Mayhem. Every weekday at 6:55, it's Denny's Diner. Yep, Joe and I will cook up some trivia questions, and if you have the correct answer, you'll be the winner of a $20 gift card from either JJ's Side Out Bar and Grill, the Burger Bar and Grill, JJ's Pizza Shack, Wanna Pizza, or Nowhere Bar and Grill. So join us weekdays for Denny's Diner at 6:55 on the Morning Mayhem for your chance to win here on 96.7 The Eagle.
We're waiting to hear from you. Dial or text 362-0522 and let us know what you think. That's 362-0522. Back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. Glad to have you with us today on the show. We've got Sheriff Candidate Andy Hynek, who's talking about his campaign, some of the things that he supports. If you want to give us a call or if you have a question for Mr. Hynek, 219-362-0522, or email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. If you're streaming with us online, you can put the comments in on Facebook or YouTube, and I'd be happy to read the question for you. Let's get to a caller. We've got someone online. I'm going to guess this is Steve Hollyfield, because, Steve, you almost always get the first call of the day. What's up, buddy?
Hey, thank you, Mr. Hynek, for coming on to answer questions, and thank you for your service for LaPorte County. I got two quick questions. I ask the same of every candidate. Are there any other things that you can think of to cut the budget's expenses? There's a lot of things that could be looked at in LaPorte County, and also the Sheriff's Department, like the Sheriff Boyd did with food services, to cut, to save instead of having to use a LEP tax. And also, what are your thoughts on placement of a new jail? It's going to be coming. Someone's going to have to admit to it. And what's your thought about the placement, and where do you think it should go? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Steve. And again, you can talk about budget here, and I did want to talk about jail, but let's tackle the budget question first.
Hey, thanks for calling, Steve. I think we can always, and we should always, be looking at ways to cut the budget and doing stuff like Sheriff Boyd has done as far as privatizing some of the stuff, so long as we are not affecting folks' jobs, right? We want to make sure that these people that have been longtime employees there still have their job. They're not going to be shipped off someplace else. So I think we should, and all organizations should always be looking at ways to reduce spending. I think we can also do that by doing some competitive bidding. And another idea that I have is partnering with some of our local agencies, LaPorte City, Michigan City, Westville, Kingsford Heights, stuff like that, with these other agencies, and saying, look, we need to buy 15 bulletproof vests this year for our deputies, right? Well, when we call the salesman and he says they're $500 a piece, but we say we want to buy 15, he says, well, I sell those for $475 a piece, and so now we've saved $25. But if we can get into kind of like a cooperative with some of our other municipalities, and we say instead of buying 15 bulletproof vests, for example, we're going to buy 40 of them. Now we've saved everybody a little bit of money, right? And so I think if we do stuff like that, we can save money in our budget.
Yeah, and the second question you had, which I had written down here that I wanted to talk about, I remember Mayor Dermody talked about this, I think, on the Morning Mayhem, and he caused mayhem because he talked about eventually potentially moving the jail out. And this is a conversation that often happens, behind the scenes, because it's projecting, right? People know that work in the jail, people know that work in the city, that you're landlocked at the jail, you're landlocked there, and some of the services for jail, some of the services for office stuff just can't happen in the building they're in. And so as Steve, the caller, said, somebody's going to be honest with this. You mentioned earlier that probably this next sheriff is going to maybe start having to deal with that even more seriously, correct?
Absolutely. And so, when we talk about, again, the jail is aging at 8 or 9 years for every real year, it is a conversation we have to have. And we have to look at, one, how are we going to fund that, right? So that's part of the lit tax, I believe. But, this building, it just simply is outdated. It doesn't have, the technology that, in 2004 when we opened that building is much different than it is today. Those hardworking folks that go in there every single day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, our jail deputies will tell you they're constantly battling issues, mechanical issues and logistical issues in there. And we need to, one, make sure that we have a work environment for them that's safe, that when they come to work that they feel safe. But, when we talk about a jail, we're landlocked where we are now. It's not in a very good location when it comes to stuff like parking and getting around. So we have to look at, where are we going to put it at? I believe that if we get, some of the county land, use some of the county land out by the fairgrounds, but inevitably every time that you talk about a jail, people will say, yep, we need a new jail. And we can take them on a tour and show them, look how dilapidated this door is or this facility is. But everybody's going to say, yep, we need a new jail, but not in my backyard, right? It comes with it. That happens a lot of times, a lot of different topics, but specifically the jail. We all agree we need a jail, but not in my backyard because I don't want it to affect my property value, the sense of security, right? People that live close to facilities sometimes feel unsafe, that what if an offender would happen to get loose or something like that. So
typically they don't stay close to the jail if they do get loose.
They try to go as far as they can, and knock on wood, we never have to deal with that here.
So then, it kind of, for me, this question of a jail, and we won't hit on this too hard, but the question of a new jail in LaPorte or whatever also begs a question about reform programs, right? Because one of the things that I know you've talked about is mental health, these kind of things, but also I think some of the candidates, not just you, have talked about this. The whole idea is recidivism, right? That trying to get people to not come back to jail.
Correct.
And some of that is I was talking to somebody that worked for the prosecutor's office a couple years ago, and they said sometimes what you have to do when people come into the jail is you have to peel back up the layers of the onion, right? And you find out that somebody, through the problem-solving court or somebody has got this trauma that happened, these kind of things. So the sheriff, again, you can punish people. You can just put them in jail, or you can try to be a little bit more proactive in saying, okay, what can we do to get people to stop coming to jail? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question, and it's actually one of my main focuses in my campaign is the reduction of recidivism. Right? If the American criminal justice system is founded on the belief of rehabilitation, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to rehabilitate an offender? And so when these folks come in, a lot of them don't have a support system when they're on the outside to help them, to teach them a skill. And so one of my ideas, again, is not to reinvent the wheel, is simply to do some of the programs that are being done around us. Elkhart County has Ivy Tech within their facility. Sheriff Redmond over at St. Joe County has the IN2 work program in his facility. Again, to give these folks maybe a little added skill and, more importantly, a little hope. Right? That's a basic human need and want, is for hope. So if we can give an offender a little bit of hope when they came in, they didn't have the hope. When they leave, they have that, and they go in to an employer and say, "Look, I have this certificate. I learned this basic skill, so instead of being an entry-level employee, now maybe I can start out a little bit higher than entry-level. I feel good about myself. I'm making this paycheck on my own. I'm not stealing from mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle. And I'm not going to go back to jail anymore," right? And so now we've done our part, and we've been that support system for them. It doesn't do any good to take somebody and have the courts sentence somebody to a year. We put them in a cell and we say, okay, we, the citizens, are going to pay to feed you and medicate you and all the costs that come associated with being in a facility. And then we open the door after a year and we say, well, I can't believe he came back or she came back after 3 weeks. Well, what did we do? What was the meaningful part of that incarceration?
We've got Andy Hynek on the show today. Andy's running for LaPorte County Sheriff on the Democratic ticket. If you have a question, we'd love to hear from you today. You're welcome to email us or call us. You can call me at 219-362-0522. It gets right through the studio, or email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Here's a question for you. What does Captain Hynek think about gun confiscation?
Okay, so as far as gun confiscation, I have a lot of experience with that. In my years with the Drug Task Force, we worked a lot of crimes that involved firearms, illegally possessed firearms. So again, if the question is to that, somebody that's committed a crime, they are a felon or whatever the case is, I believe in that. If like a general, should we go out and, beat down people's doors and take guns? Absolutely not. And I don't think there's any candidate that would think that.
All right. The sheriff is a high-profile position in the county and works with law enforcement officials at the highest level. Does Andy have anyone he prefers for prosecutor, and why?
I enjoy working with several prosecutors over my 22 years. They've all been good to me. So whoever's in there, I think it's important that our law enforcement agencies, not just the sheriff's department, has a good working relationship with them. And I can say that I and our department, not just myself, have, I believe, had a really good working relationship with all of our prosecutors over the last 22 years. And I would say that that's very important, because none of us can get anything done by ourselves.
All right, we've got Andy Hynek on the show today, and we're talking about his campaign for sheriff. Last week on Monday we had Al Ott. This coming week we've got Ron Heeg and James Arnold. So you're going to hear from almost all of the candidates. Andrew Morse is not scheduled yet, but we're going to get him on here, I promise. If you have a question, please do call us, 219-362-0522. I see we have a call online. Let's take a break first, and we're going to get to you. Stay patient. We'll be right back here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Car problems often strike at the absolute worst times, but you can rest well knowing that Cannon's Automotive Service is here for you and dedicated to get you back on the road with prompt, efficient, same-day service. The same Cannon's commitment that LaPorte has trusted for over 50 years. Cannon's Automotive Service, now with 2 locations, 710 Tyler Street and 909 Boyd Boulevard.
With Cannon's Automotive, we fix everything.
It's the grand opening of Cricket Wireless in LaPorte, and they're celebrating by giving you unbelievable deals. Get a free Android device, or for you Apple fans, iPhone SE only $49, or an iPhone 11 just $99. And for a limited time, you'll receive a $50 account credit, all when you switch to Cricket Wireless. And if that's not enough, how about a subscription to HBO Max 5G service and 15 gig mobile hotspot when you sign up for Cricket's $60 unlimited plan? It's happening now at the new Cricket Wireless, Pine Lake Avenue in LaPorte's Pine Lake Plaza.
Paul's Auto Yard in Westfield is paying top dollar for junk cars and scrap metal, including copper, brass, and aluminum. Drive it in or have them haul it away for you. Put some fast cash in your pocket and get rid of that junk car, running or not. Need a part for your car or truck? You can pick and pull from any of Paul's Auto Yard locations. Paul's Auto Yard has been in the business for over 45 years and will beat anyone's price. Hey, don't take my word for it. Give them a call today, 219-785-2613. That's 219-785-2613.
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Orndorff. On the next weekend in the country, we head back to April of 1988. Televangelist Jimmy Swaggart had been bad. Pro wrestling returned to primetime TV, and Kansas won the college basketball championship. And on the radio, we were listening to Highway 101. Hank Williams Jr., Reba McEntire, Eddie Rabbit, and Holly Dunn. And we'll have them and more on the next Weekend in the Country.
Join us for Weekend in the Country, Saturday morning following your 8 a.m. news on 96.7 The Eagle, brought to you by Haverstock Funeral Home and Cremation Services. Let's look at the forecast at 96.7 The Eagle, brought to you by the Pink Sheep Children's Boutique.
The charming and affordable Pink Sheep Children's Boutique has so many fun themes and styles for boys, girls, and moms. Come see for yourself. The Pink Sheep Children's Boutique, 604 Lincoln Way in downtown LaPorte.
Michiana weather.
40 this afternoon under mainly clear skies. Northwest winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. 30 tonight, partly cloudy. Scattered rain showers likely tomorrow. High of 45. From the Weather Center at HometownNewsNow.com. Right now, 34.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
I feel like I failed you, everyone. It's April 1st. I don't have an April Fool's Day joke or any kind of prank or anything. So, do something yourself, prank yourself, just do something and say it's from me. All right, we got Andy Hynek on the show today. Andy is running for sheriff for LaPorte County on the Democratic ticket. Over the next couple of weeks, we've got the sheriff candidates, so you can listen to them and learn about their platforms. If you have a question, again, it's 219-362-0522 or email me at soundoff@967theeagle. We just got about 10 minutes left on the show. Let's get to a caller. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Glad to have you today. What's your question for Andy Hynek?
Hey, Nate, what a pleasure. Officer Andy Hynek, thanks for coming on and taking questions and answering, and thank you for your service. Just outstanding. In the old days, you had guns, batons, and handcuffs, and the technology today is incredible, from tasers to the personal handheld thermal imaging, the police vehicle windshield camera thermal imaging. You have the government drones thermal imaging that are in the sky. This technology is stellar. Where do you see the line drawn between citizens' privacy and how these technologies can go and invade inside people's homes without their knowledge, without warrants, and image them in any place they are in their home? How do you feel about some of this?
All right,
it's very intrusive.
Let's let Andy answer that.
Not
All right,
a lot
go
of
ahead.
people talk about.
Yeah, it's I would never support doing anything illegal or going into a house. We at the Sheriff's Department pride ourselves on following the 4th and 14th Amendment very, very closely. When in doubt, we always get search warrants when those are needed. We again have a good working relationship with the prosecutor's office, and there is a need for that technology though, because sometimes when we have stuff like robots and drones, we can put those into harm's way where we're not having to put an officer into harm's way. We recently, I have to give a shout out to Detective Jake Coach from our office. He started a drone program he's very passionate about. Now we have several other drone operators on our department, Deputy Trey Masterson and Detective Austin Howell, and they're very passionate about that, but they are able to put those drones in places where if we would have to put a human sometimes, they would be in a very dangerous position. And if the difference is we have to have an officer get hurt or a drone destroyed, I'd much rather have that drone destroyed. But again, we always operate, under the auspice of the Constitution.
All right, let's get to another question. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. Thanks for being here. What's your question for Andy Hynek?
Hi, Nate and Deputy Hynek. This is Tommy Kolovic calling. Hey, if you have a young person that's interested in becoming a LaPorte County Sheriff's Deputy and maybe someday becoming the new LaPorte County Sheriff, explain what they have to do. Thank you.
All right. How can, obviously, there's always a need for law enforcement. What can people do if they're interested in becoming a...
Yeah, thanks for calling, Tommy. Sure, anybody that wants to apply to the Sheriff's Department, we are currently hiring. We're probably almost always hiring. We have openings within our jail division. We have openings on our merit division. They can come down and fill out an application, and I would encourage them to do that. I would encourage them, like I said, you can go online and get that application, and we, as soon as this, very soon now, we'll have our ride-along program reinstituted. It's kind of been on hold due to the pandemic, but that's another way for somebody that's interested in law enforcement can reach out to our PIO, Captain Allen, and get that set up where they can come out and see if that's something they're interested in, right along with one of our deputies.
Yeah, shout out to Derek Allen there. All right, so here's a question we received on Facebook Live for you. What are your thoughts on controlling the people coming into our county, people coming up from the border, and people from overseas, i.e. Afghanistan and Camp Atterbury, to protect the people of our county from federal overreach?
Again, that a lot of that falls back onto ICE, but it is important that our department continues to have a good working relationship with those organizations, and we support what they need. You know, when they call and they say they need assistance locating somebody that is here illegally, we need to provide that resource to them. Again, almost everything that we do, including stuff like that, falls under in the guidelines of the Constitution, and we're not swooping up into somebody's house in the middle of the night and going in there illegally and ripping them to the jail or something.
Is there a way that I can pay you to do that to Dennis Siddell?
Well,
is that for like a hire thing, or no?
I'm trying to fund a campaign, so you've picked the right time to do that.
All right, because I'm 100% for the Constitution for most people, but I'm willing to again, compromise my beliefs if it goes against Dennis Siddell. So let's talk a little bit. If you've got a question, we've got a couple minutes left. 219-362-0522. You're welcome to call us and talk to Andy Hynek. But I want to talk a little bit about the drug problem. We see, again, and what's interesting about this is not a problem that's unique to LaPorte County. This is a problem unique to all of America, right? I mean, this is something that's going on, but the sheriff and the community health partners, they're the ones that are tasked to make our community better. What can a sheriff and law enforcement do to help our issues with drugs, not only those selling, but also hopefully, like you mentioned, giving hope to those who are addicted?
Good question. Again, another one of my platforms, and that's one of the things I think that sets me apart from the other candidates is having been the only one that's been in the drug task force, specifically as the commander of that. And I think we did a really good job, and the folks in the drug task force today are still doing a really good job of having those partnerships with the prosecutor's office and some of our health facilities within the county. But it absolutely is not a problem that's unique to LaPorte County. Everywhere we go across the country now, somebody knows somebody that's affected by this epidemic, and we have to do a better job. All of us have to do a better job of combating that. 10 or 15 years ago, you'd run into somebody, they say, well, I don't know anybody that's been addicted to drugs, or I don't know anybody that's known somebody that's overdosed and died. But one of my ideas is that we have to do let these people that have a story to tell their story, and I think that is one of the ways that when I tell people I want to use an educational approach to the heroin epidemic, that's it. Let these people tell their story. I tell people, if I went and talked to some adolescents and I tell them don't do drugs, they're going to look at me and say, well, what does this guy know about addiction, right? He's never had that. But if we bring some of these people that have successfully been through stuff like our problem solving court, and we bring those and let them tell their story of how painful it was physically and mentally, and how they didn't have a place to live, and they were stealing from mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle, etc., and all of the challenges that were presented to their life because of that bad choice. Hopefully then when those adolescents get to the good choice, bad choice point of their life, they say, man, that young man or that young lady that looks like me and talks like me came and told me about their story, and I don't want to go down the path that they went down. Same thing. We use some of these parents that really have a story to tell, and they want to tell that story of, maybe a loss of life or the battle of the addiction overall with their child or their niece or their nephew or their grandchild. We need those folks to shine a light to the folks that maybe haven't had kids that age yet, so they're more in tune with what signs do they need to be looking for, and to start asking those tough questions.
All right, let's get to our final question of the day. Hey, you're our final question of the day. Thanks so much for listening to the show. What's your question for Andy Hynek?
Hi, I was wondering, what are your plans on to support not only the officers on the road, but all of the employees?
Thank you.
Good question. So I am a big proponent of promoting our employees, right? We need to do whatever we can to shine a spotlight on them when they do a good job and take input from them, whether it's our jail deputies or our road deputies. I am committed to making sure that they have a say in stuff like equipment and uniforms and stuff like that. Allow them to have, not everything is authoritarian. Some stuff we do in law enforcement leadership has to be authoritarian, but some of the other things we can do for our deputies, allow them to have a buy-in there, right? Allow them to have a say when it comes to, do they want this type of shift or wear this type of uniform? Or one of the other topics that has come up in this campaign for sheriff is, the question of a contract. And, if I believe that the majority of our deputies are in favor of that, but again, I would allow that to go to a vote. And if that's something they're interested in, again, to do whatever we can to have a buy-in there. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the most important thing that I can do for our employees is to ensure that every one of those merit deputies and every one of those jail deputies goes home every night safe to their families.
All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people find you online?
They can find me at HynekForSheriff.com. I have a Andy Hynek for Sheriff Facebook page, my personal Facebook page. They can call me. They can come to my house, whatever they want. I'm accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except for the 3 hours I sleep a day.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Again, thank you so much for listening. Next week, we'll have Ron Heeg and James Arnold on the show. You'll be able to hear some more from sheriff candidates. If you have any questions for that, we'd appreciate hearing from you. Hey, be good to each other, be good to yourself, and have a great weekend, and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.